All right, so I realized something as I was like writing for all these different videos, right? And some of the topics that I've come across have been comparing different terms or defining certain things that are, part of the language of the tech world. And I realized like I just had this little pattern of constantly comparing terms, defining them, trying to illustrate them in a way that's just easy to digest because we tend to get a lot of these terms confused. And another pair of terms that I came across that not only are used in the tech world with like advertisements and things like that, but just in general, are invention and innovation, right? And I think with some of the topics that we come across in the tech world when we have to learn this stuff and how we go about our day-to-day processes or just day-to-day jobs, our 9 to 5s and things, I started thinking maybe that's another thing we can clear up too when it comes to inventing something versus innovating something. Because I know that's something I personally have gotten confused up until fairly recently, to be honest. It's never been like truly defined and I never understood the difference. But now I do. So I was like, if I had a hard time understanding it at some point, someone else did too. So let's go over the difference between invention, innovation, what they are, and just how they're a little bit different. And we can kind of liken this to this question I asked before. Are you more of an inventor or are you more of an innovator? So let's go and get started on that. So starting with the first one, what is invention just in general? To sum it up, to invent something means that you're creating something that's completely new, something that no one has ever seen before in any market. Whether you usually in like when we say market or the marketplace, we're just talking about like where people go out and they can buy stuff, like the grocery market, but just the whole world, like in general. So, the cell phone, for example, at one point was an invention. But for the last few decades, at least, if not longer, there's been more of innovation going on, right? Usually with inventions, there's a lot of money and time spent before we even see the product, before it hits the market, it hits shelves, and people can buy them. Because people usually have to do R&D or research and development. They have to come up with different prototypes. They have to test those out. They have to figure out what base model do they want to reach, when it comes to functionality, and then build it, figure out like what different architectures and things they can use to make it more efficient, cost efficient. It's all around depending, what their goals are. But at one point, again, with cell phones, it was just a matter of mobile communication. So as long as they were able to make and receive phone calls, that was pretty much it. Well, I don't know about, yeah, make and receive phone calls and everything would have been fine. Now, a lot of different features have been packed into these little devices that initially were supposed to be used to make phone calls, which as millennials and I think Gen Z at this point, generations going forward, we don't even care for phone calls more times than not, right? Unless you're talking about like dating or something, that's usually where people get pretty picky. But in general, people are just like, yo, just text me or send me some other type of message. I don't really care for phone calls, right? Because we just got so many different modes of communication now. But that's usually what invention is about. You can spend 10 years working on something before it even hits the general public and people even know it exists. And then from there, it may move and usually does move and change the way that we as regular everyday people go about our everyday lives, whether it's how we integrate these things into our personal lives or even how they get integrated into the workplace. And next you know, different and new business processes are being created and it just influences our overall society and culture. So that's what invention does. Now, how's it different from innovation? As I said with the cell phone example, the cell phone at one point was a brand new invention. There was no form of mobile communication for when you're moving within your city, within your neighborhood, across the country, and let alone across the world, right? So at one point, that was a brand new invention. But with each generation of new phones that certain companies tend to pump out almost, if not on an annual basis at some point, at this point, and just all the different features and everything that's packed into it, we're focusing more on innovation. That's why a lot of these tech companies, when they're pushing products, whether it's smartwatches, cell phones, different things, other kind of even like smartwatches, but they're not used for texting and phone calling. Like they may be fitness trackers. I have one as well. And yeah, even those are considered more so innovative at this point. At one point, the watch was a full blown invention, and now it's become part of just technology, Internet of Things, IoT. We'll talk about that later. And yeah, now it's more innovative. Like it was just to tell time. Now we can tell time. Now you can keep track of certain health factors, your heart rate, how many steps you took, what was your max heart rate of the day, what was your lowest, what's your resting heart rate, a bunch of different things, right? Even receiving and making phone calls on these devices. So that's more innovative. basically you're taking something that has already been invented and already has a core function, which people are still using, but you're saying, hey, it would be nice if this could also do this. And you start adding additional stuff into that device. So again, at one point, phones, they were able, or rather were created purely for phone calls. Now it's at a point where, again, we barely even use them for phone calls. We usually don't like it, but you have text messaging. You have, in my case, FaceTime. I know Google has Google Duo that allows you to kind of do that even across the two different brand of devices. Email, all these different things from gaming to music. You can create on your phone, record videos, photos, a bunch of different things, right? But those are all steps of innovation. They're all additions to the core function, which was mobile communication, mainly in making and receiving calls. Think of it like this. For Dragon Ball Z, well, Dragon Ball initially, Master Roshi, of course, is the inventor of the Kamehameha wave, or I forget the formal name. It was like something turtle wave, something like that. But the Kamehameha, which is the signature technique of Goku, and you can even pass that along somewhat to Gohan, but that might change, especially after the DBS superhero movie. His new signature technique might be special beam cannon, which he got from his real father, Piccolo, or his dad, depending on how you look at it. Yeah, the same way, like at one point, Gohan's signature technique was Masenko. Now it might be special beam cannon. Kamehameha is Goku's. You can still say it's Roshi's. You can say it's like Krillin's kind of second signature technique. His main one has become the Destructo Disc, which even Goku kind of used or taken over to a degree, not nearly as much, but you get the point. But with the initial example, go back to Dragon Ball and notice, or if you know Dragon Ball, then you already know that Master Roshi was the original creator of the Kamehameha wave, right? Whatever the regular, like the translated name is, something turtle wave, yeah, that. And Goku, he learned it in a matter of minutes. Roshi wasn't expecting Goku to learn the Kamehameha wave so quickly because it took him years of just constant training, to figure out something new. The same way you're trying to start a new company from scratch or create a new product from scratch. He was creating this from scratch, and he had to train himself to create something that only he could see, and so only something he envisioned for years, completely by himself, before he even mastered his own technique. So here comes Goku, just kind of willy-nilly trying it for the first time, and he destroys a car, like right off the bat. But at this point, he's created so many different variations of the Kamehameha wave, even though he's not the one that invented it, it still is linked mainly to him before we even think about Roshi, at least most people I know. You have, if you take the video games into consideration, of course, you have the father son Kamehameha, you have the warp Kamehameha, which he mainly used against Perfect Cell, but they never gave an official technique, but I think he still pretty much uses it. Of course, you have Kamehameha times 10, I think is one, especially when he uses Kaioken. Then you have when he goes into Super Saiyan 4 and uses Kamehameha times 10 or 20, something like that. Yeah, there's multiple variations of it. There's even the Big Bang Kamehameha with Vegito. No, that's Gogeta. Gogeta uses Big Bang Kamehameha, and I think Vegito uses Final Kamehameha, if I remember that correctly. So you have all these different variations. You can use the same comparison with Naruto. Minato created the Rasengan, but Naruto's the one that ultimately perfected it when it came to adding a change of chakra nature to it, and then just the different variations from the other tailed beasts. So you guys get the point between Dragon Ball and Naruto. It's when somebody, an inventor, is like Minato and Roshi, who spend X amount of years, a certain amount of time, developing these techniques. But once they get the baseline and the core of it flowing, other people can come along and say, hey, it would be nice if we do this, and we stack these different things on top of it, and it will make it even better than it was before. And that's where you get Goku, Naruto, and other characters like that create so many different versions and variations of that same technique. But because of the diversity and also just how much we tend to link it with them, because that's just how the shows were designed, then they end up becoming known as the main users and innovators of that technique, and they continuously push it forward until they pass it on to somebody else, or someone adds in their own ideas, or someone even creates a technique that's completely original of their own, and they start innovating from there. So hopefully that was entertaining and useful to you guys. With that said, I want to ask just a quick question. I'll pose this question to you. Do you see yourself as more as an inventor? Are you more of a Master Roshi or a Minato who like to create things completely from scratch? Or are you more of an innovator who likes to take something that's already in front of you, something you already have like hands-on access to, and can say, hey, you know what, it would be cool if we added this in addition to what this can already do. And we just stack these different features, and you continuously push forward something that already exists, but in ways that people don't expect. So that's my question I want to pose to you guys, as well as hopefully that's useful in general in your personal and professional lives, especially in the tech world, but just in general, that's something we tend to get mixed up. I know I have, and I've only fairly recently understood the difference. So hope this information was useful to you guys. I'm gonna leave it at that. If you got any feedback for me, go ahead and throw them in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.